Welcome, boys and ghouls, to tonight's spectacular story. Thanks for joining me here. My name is Jack Skellington. On other days of the year, I'm known as Nick Bacon. I'm the managing director at Mainstream and at Mainstage Chicago. We're going to have a little fun tonight. We're also going to feel some chills. So I hope you're ready for both. We've got some great storytellers coming up in a little bit. But before we get started, we're going to play a little game. More on the game in just a second. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about our costumes. I got all dressed up, uh, and what we'd like to do, everyone to do is if you're wearing a costume, go ahead and just snap that selfie, just take that picture, post it on Instagram, and tag Mainstage Chicago on it. The winner of we're going to have our own Anna Wintour, Beth Norbert, judge our costume contest. And at the end of the night, our winner is going to get a very special prize. So if you're wearing a costume, take that picture, post it on Instagram, and tag Mainstage Chicago. That's the first thing. Next thing, we're going to play some, we're going to do some crossword puzzles. We're going to do a live crossword brought to you today by our friends at Hovercats, who are exploring new interactive means of live streaming. All you need to do is this. If you are watching on YouTube, all you need to do is type into the YouTube chat. So we're going to try this out. If you're watching on YouTube, I want you to type hashtag spirit, because you're here in spirit. You're going to join the spirit team. If you're watching in the flesh, if you're at Mainstage Chicago, you can type hashtag flesh and click on that QR code in order to get there. I'll give you all a second to do that. There's a little bit of latency on YouTube, so you're seeing me about 10 seconds in the past. Seeing a couple of people joining us as spirits. Love seeing my spirits out there. This is great. All right. We're going to bring up the crossword puzzle. All you need to do is if you see a word, if you see something that you know, just type it in the chat. You don't need to type the number. You don't need to type where it is. You just type the word. And that's what we're going to do. So let's go ahead and get this started. We're going to do this for a few minutes. When we hear some spooky screams, that'll be the sign that the stories are about to begin. So let's go, Team Spirit. Let's try to solve some puzzles. Fantastic work, Team Spirit. Really crushing the flesh. Um, when you type in the chat, you actually don't need to type the number that you're voting or like whether it's across or down. All you need to do is just type the word. So that's it. I'm hoping we can finish this crossword puzzle before the spooky stories start. We got about 3 or 4 minutes left. Ah, that terrifying scream means that our time with crossword is over. Our host, Count Dracula, has a couple of things to say to us, and we'll be joining him shortly. Thanks so much for playing. I'm going to drop the link in the chat if y'all want to keep playing crossword, but in the meantime, stick by for some spooky stories.
Hello and welcome to the Scream Stream. There it is. There's the Scream. I'm your host. I'm Count Dracula, one of the most famous vampires in the world, and I've got some spooky stories for you here at Mainstage, Chicago, in Transylvania. You know what I've been thinking about recently? I've been thinking about food. You know, like back in my day, food just used to take longer. You had to grow it, you know, we had to eat a lot of bread because there wasn't stuff around, but now you guys got fast food. Isn't that crazy? I mean, it's crazy for me because I know the difference, but you just grew up on it. What are some of your favorite fast food places? Bojangles? Yeah. Huh? Burger King? Yeah, Taco Bell, Wendy's. You know what my favorite fast food is? Joggers. I gotta run catch them before I suck their blood so I remain youthful. I've been alive for hundreds of years. But that's enough about me. But here's something for you. We got a costume contest. If you're wearing a costume, we want to see it. So submit your costume, submit your spookiest, scariest outfit, and you might win a case of beer. But let's get into it. You didn't come here to see me talk. You came here to see Kori Whitby, a real-life girl here to tell a story about meeting a special new friend.
Hi everyone, my name is Kori Whitby. I am in fact a real life girl. And one thing about me is that I've had the same best friend since third grade. We met in third grade and have been friends ever since. And we both grew up in downtown Orlando, Florida, which if you've ever been there, you know it's like old feeling. It has the brick roads, the sort of one level Florida bungalow, old like 50s and 60s houses. It's a really beautiful place to live. And this particular friend's house had been in her family for generations. So it was passed down generation by generation and eventually landed with her and her parents and her younger brother. And I used to spend the night at that house all the time. Almost every weekend, we would have a sleepover either at her house or at my house. Now, on this particular weekend, I was spending the night at her house. And one thing about me when I was a kid during sleepovers is that I was one of those people who would very frequently wake up in the middle of the night and decide that I didn't want to be there anymore. And then I would go wake up their parents who had to call my parents to come and pick me up. And I did that like 6 out of 10 sleepovers. I very much liked just being at home. So this particular night, I woke up probably around 2 or 3 in the morning and I decided, you know what? It's my time to get out of here. I gotta call my mom, get her to come pick me up because I want to go home. So I got up out of bed, walked into my friend's parents' room, woke up her mom and said, "Hi, can you please call my mom? I'd like to go home." And so she obliged. And this was in the time of landlines. So their landline was in their kitchen. And so she went into the kitchen and told me to just go sit and wait in the living room while she called my mom to come and pick me up. So I did. And just a little bit about the layout of this living room. So there were 2 couches up against the wall, a sliding glass door, and then the TV was on this far wall. So one of the couches faced the sliding glass door that led outside to their pool. So I go into the living room and I sit on the couch facing the sliding glass door in the middle cushion. And I'm sitting there for a second and I look up at the reflection in the sliding glass door. And in the reflection, there is a small girl sitting to my left. And I look to my left and there's obviously no one there. And I look back at the reflection and it was a small girl, very classic looking ghost. Brown hair, white dress, black shoes, like what you picture when you picture a ghost, sitting next to me in my reflection. And so I freaked out. I did not stick around for long. I got up, I sprinted to the kitchen, and I just kind of clung to my friend's mom, waiting for my mom to come and pick me up. There are a lot of other kind of crazy things that have happened in that house in the time that I have been friends with this person. The house is still in their family. I still go there when I visit Florida. There's been doors opening and closing and a lot of other crazy stories that I will tell on a different day. All right, back to you, Dracula.
Ooh, that was a spooky one. Thank you so much, Kori. But also, you know, all you vampires out there too, you know it's a sad one. You know, we haven't seen our reflection in some time. And people are always like, Dracula. You know, you're always kind of getting in these cycles with people. You know, I get a little bit about myself. I keep getting these toxic relationships. Things are pretty hot and heavy, and then they're trying to put a stake in my heart. You know, and people are like, why do you keep doing this, Dracula? You've been alive for hundreds of years. Shouldn't you know better? Well, I lack self-reflection. Ain't that the truth? That story that took place in Florida, and I love the South. I love the whole southern United States. I love rednecks. If you consider a 6-pack of beer and a bug zapper a night's entertainment, you might be a redneck, and I might be trying to suck your blood. And if you think if you play strip poker at a family reunion, then you might be a redneck, and I'm going to try to suck all the blood out of your body. Thank you. And if you don't think that baseball players scratch and spit too much, then you might be a redneck, and I'm going to try to kill you. Oh, that's just a little bit about me in the southern United States. If you're watching from the southern United States, put a 1 in the chat. Love to hear from our people from there. Now, I met this next speaker at the old Cascateria. Welcome to the Scream Stream, Scott Larson.
Hi there, my name is Scott Larson, and I'm the creator of the comic book series Visitations. Visitations is the history of Chicago as seen through the eyes of the residents of the city's oldest cemetery. And I want to tell you today about my favorite cemetery in Chicago, and that's Graceland Cemetery. And the best way I know how to do that is to tell you about my personal story, which isn't quite as spooky as some of the ones that follow it, but it is interesting. So a number of years ago, I found out that I have some ancestors who are buried at Graceland Cemetery. And when I went to go and visit their graves there, the first thing I saw was this gigantic statue that looked like death. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But it was this huge cloaked figure, and I walked through the cemetery, and there was this little girl statue enclosed in a glass case. There were angel statues all over the place, and all kinds of very interesting things. And I went to bed that night. I woke up the next day, and I had the story for Visitations in my head. So the characters are all based on monuments in different cemeteries around the world, and it's all been inspired by Graceland. And one of the things that I find is I go to different comic book conventions, and I take my book along with me, and I start asking people, hey, have you ever heard of Graceland Cemetery? And people who walk past my table get accosted by me all the time, and I say, hey, have you ever heard of Graceland Cemetery? Have you ever heard of Graceland Cemetery? And for anyone who doesn't know, Graceland Cemetery is where the founding fathers of Chicago are buried. So George Pullman is buried there, Potter Palmer is buried there, Daniel Burnham is buried there, and a whole lot of other people. And one day someone came walking past my table, and I said, hey, have you ever heard of Graceland Cemetery? And she stopped and she said, yes, my friends and I used to break in there all the time and get drunk. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And we had a little conversation about that. And then I said, did you ever see anything when you were in there? And she said, "Ma." And I said, I'm sorry, did you ever see anything when you were in there? And she said, oh, we were drunk. And I said, well, what did you see? And she said, we saw an old man in a newsboy hat floating towards us. And I said, did your friend see this? And she said, yeah. And I'm like, alcohol doesn't work like that. Maybe something else, but not alcohol. And so there are some really interesting stories that are legends in Graceland Cemetery and personal things people have seen. And so I mentioned the big statue of death that I saw when I first walked in. That statue is called Eternal Silence. And it is very old. It was sculpted by one of the famous Chicago sculptors who actually did some stuff downtown as well. And the legend with that statue is if you look into its face, you can see a vision, and into its eyes, you can see a vision of your own death. I don't know if that's true or not because I was a little too afraid to do it myself, but that is the legend. The other thing with Eternal Silence, which is really, really interesting, is by his feet, he's wearing a cape, and you can actually see his feet poking out. And by his feet, there's coins. And what happens is people come up and they put coins down for safe passage to the afterlife. Kind of like the ferryman from the River Styx from Greek mythology. The only difference is that the ferryman, what I found out is you have to pay him after you cross the River Styx. Otherwise, he can take your money and just dump you right into the river. But the other thing with this particular statue is electronics fail around it. And people have talked to me about that, and they're like, "Oh, well, you know what? I've been able to take a picture of it, ha 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 ha." But somebody came over to me and was talking to me about it, and he said, "Yeah, I was able to take pictures, but my camera kept cutting out, and my phone wouldn't work around this particular statue." So that's really, really, really interesting. And then the other thing is just these personal stories that people have concerning Graceland. And I was talking to somebody, and she said she works for Amazon. And she was coming home at 3 a.m. because Amazon keeps their workers really, really late at night. And so she was on the red line in Chicago. If you don't know Chicago, there's a red line, there's a purple line, there's a brown line, there's all kinds of different colors. The red line basically goes from Evanston to downtown and to the south side. And so she was on the red line, and she said, "What's that cemetery you can see from the red line?" I said, "That's Graceland Cemetery." Because you can see that. Graceland is basically between Truman College on the L and Wrigley Field. It's right in between both of them. And she said, "Well, it was really strange. I was going by there, and I saw these people leaping from tombstone to tombstone and then disappearing into the ether." I don't quite know what that means. Apparently, there is a game that people play in cemeteries where they jump from tombstone to tombstone. But at 3 a.m, it seems kind of strange. And the fact that she was able to see it from the L is pretty strange as well. There is also a little girl in Graceland, a little girl statue that's encased in glass. And she apparently, when there is a rainstorm, she disappears from the case. People have seen her frolicking around the cemetery multiple times. People have heard crying over by the statue, and that's a firsthand account that I've gotten as well. And so, if you're in Chicago, if you live in Chicago, or if you're just visiting, I highly recommend you go and visit Graceland Cemetery. If not for the hauntings, for the statues. Back to you, Dracula.
Oh, wow, those statues sounded scary, frightening, too intense for me. Never have I been more happy to be undead. Wait a minute. What do I hear? Do I have some friends coming to visit? Oh, hey, guys. Oh, well, since they're here, I thought let's show them some of our vampire dance moves, okay? Everyone knows the Monster Mash, but us vampires have a couple other dance moves that we do. Are you ready, guys? Okay, here we go. Here's the Boogaloo. Boo. Boo. Did you do? Okay, how about, yeah, I'm going to do that one, okay? Let's do the Fandango. And of course, after the Fandango, you've got a floss. Okay, yeah, I got they wanted to kind of introduce the next person, but they sent me an email. And I bet you're at home, you're like, Count Dracula can use email? Yeah, at first I was confused, technology is always changing, and right now is a really confusing time for vampires. But as soon as I did my first download, I knew I could get it. I downloaded a kilobyte. There you go. Talk in the chat, kind of say what you like to do on the computer, kind of download, look at pictures, or look at websites. And right now, we're going to send it over to a nice, innocent boy, Andy Rowell. Okay, well, I thought that was going to be Andy Rowell, but I think that looked like legit Michael Myers. So, Andy, I hope you haven't been murdered in a house or a backyard or something. Hope you're doing okay, but I guess let's give, good to have Michael Myers perform. That's kind of an exciting thing that could happen. What kind of news do you read? I like the Wall Street Journal because it has the best circulation. That's something important for me because I like sucking blood. Oh, whoa, hey! Oh. All right. I guess we're going to do an interview with a vampire. People love to think that, that would be fun to do an interview with a vampire, but it's actually really boring. They're just like, blah, blah, blah. Oh. Are you dating anybody, Michael? Yeah, I'm a big flirt. How do you if you see someone you like, how do you show them you like them? All right. Well, I bat my eyes, but you got to be careful. You don't want to have bat breath. You know what I'm talking about? You ever have bat breath? What's in there? What's in that? What's in your pocket? Are you pranking me? What's in your pocket? Ah, garlic! Get out of here! Yo, get out! Get out! You're canceled. Hey, Halloween ends, buddy. You've been some people. Unbelievable. Oh. I thought we were going to have a nice conversation, then he pulls a prank on me. Everyone knows vampires don't like garlic. Ugh. Well, let's just kind of keep moving on, and hopefully Amelia Cotter can tell us a spooky story to kind of cleanse our palate from that nasty garlic. Amelia, take it away.
Thank you, Dracula. There's no garlic in this story, but there are going to be a few delicious spirits, if you will. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, which is down in the Rubio Woods Forest Preserve in the southwest suburbs of Chicago. So it is a place that if you live around here, you can get to, and I encourage you to visit during the day, in the daylight, maybe a little bit after spooky season when it's kind of busy down there. It gets a lot of visitors and foot traffic, and it's supposed to be one of the most haunted cemeteries in the world. So the area where Bachelor's Grove is located was first settled by white Europeans around 1833, and the first burials took place in this very small, unassuming cemetery around the 1840s, up through about the 1960s. At this time, the old Midlothian Turnpike ran through what is now the trail that takes you out there to visit the cemetery if you decide to go. And this was a popular lover's lane in the 60s and 70s when a lot of the lore about the cemetery started to pop up. Along with that, and consequently, there was a lot of vandalism and desecration of the graves there. Now, over time, only about 200 people were buried in this cemetery. And if you go there today, you'll only see about a dozen or so headstones. The forest that is around Bachelor's Grove is second growth forest because there was a lot of farmland there originally, and you will see the foundations of houses and other things around the cemetery if you explore that other area. Now, the second growth forest has a lot of hawthorn. It's very thick, it's creepy, it adds to that atmosphere, and so you get an eerie feeling naturally just when you're walking through the woods on just about this quarter-of-a-mile path to get to the cemetery itself. I think I mentioned before that it's supposed to be one of the most haunted cemeteries in the area, and as well as possibly in the entire world, and many different types of apparitions have been experienced there. A few of these apparitions may be some of the people who were buried there, who were by all accounts normal, lovely, wonderful people. But because of the desecration that happened at the cemetery and rituals and drinking and all sorts of things, like a lot of the rumors and urban legends that you hear about during the 60s and 70s, and then rumors about the land being haunted before it was a cemetery as well, sort of added to this big sort of melting pot of phenomena that you can experience there, including eerie figures, eerie lights, phantom cars driving by on the road, as well as a disappearing house. So the phantom house of Bachelor's Grove. And before I get to that, I'll just mention that one of the most famous ghost photos ever taken in history was taken there by Judy Huff of the Ghost Research Society. It's the Madonna of Bachelor's Grove. If you're into ghosts or the paranormal at all, you've probably seen this photo on shows and other places. It has never been debunked, and her image is part of a larger photograph that was taken when Judy Huff was unaware that there was anybody else in the cemetery. So if you go there, you may experience the Madonna. What I experienced was, in fact, the phantom house. Now, I went there with a group of friends when I first moved to Chicago. This was around April of 2009. I'm from Maryland originally, so not quite the South, Dracula. And so I was aware that Bachelor's Grove was supposed to be super haunted, but I didn't know that, that it had all these different types of activities. So I didn't know about the phantom house. We went there after dark, which is a big no-no, and I was with about 8 people, and we were exploring the cemetery responsibly, taking photos, kind of snooping around. And I turned around, looking back towards the entrance of the cemetery and back out towards the trail. And in front of me, this big light started to grow in the forest. It was too low to be the moon, and it was too close to be a distant street light. And as it grew, it sort of pulsated and sort of developed into what looked like a window. Now, I've had all sorts of interesting paranormal experiences, but I had never seen anything like that. And I began to feel, as I was looking at this window-shaped thing, that I was looking into a window where there was maybe some soft candlelight, as if somebody was in this room. And even though it looked sort of cozy and idyllic and pastoral, I had a very dark and eerie feeling like I wasn't supposed to be seeing this. So I sort of got the attention of the other people around me, and they were all sort of transfixed, just like I was. We all sort of gathered at a point, and we're looking up at this light that was like this window, and we started to go towards that light. And what we ended up doing, and this is a part of the sort of common folklore that I learned about later, was this light kind of lured us out of the cemetery. So we just started to follow this light, and we went back out on the trail, and the light started to kind of move up and down. It was changing shape, and it was big enough. So remember I said that this second growth forest is like really thick, and the branches are really big, and there's all these brambles. We can actually see the brambles through, over the light. The light was that bright behind it, but also solid. And so we were just walking through the woods, and the light was sort of moving with us, and we were thinking to ourselves, what is this? And eventually we came out of the trail, and our getaway car, again, don't go there at night, that's not legal. Our getaway car pulled up inexplicably at the exact moment that we were walking out, and we all just sort of filed into the car and drove away. And we didn't talk about it. Nobody said, what was that light? Everybody was as if we were in a trance. And I actually fell asleep in the car on the way back to Chicago. And then later, it kind of hit me that what I had experienced was extremely strange and extremely weird. And when I would think about, get that image in my head of looking into this light and looking into what looked like this window, I would feel like whatever it was knew that I was thinking about it. And I learned later that this phantom house is something that a lot of people experience. It sort of vanishes and shows up in different areas of the cemetery. There are different foundations of homes. It doesn't seem to correspond to any of those foundations. It resembles like a 1-story or 2-story white house with sometimes with a porch swing. There is a photo of the Schmidt house from around the 1950s and that 19 teens in that area. And it sort of resembles what people describe when they describe the house. People from past generations have described being lured toward the house when they were younger kids by somebody who wanted to give them cookies. So people experience this house in different ways. I feel lucky that I only got to see the window, and I've always wondered kind of what it meant. So I do believe in ghosts, but I'm not sure how that story fits into my beliefs. So Bachelor's Grove has been always a special place for me, not only on that visit, but all the other visits as well. Thank you for listening. Back to you, Dracula.
Oof, absolutely frightening, Amelia. I mean, that story probably scary for you human beings, but hearing a story about scary lights, that's scary for vampires too, you know, because sunlight will destroy us. What do you think, this is Twilight, where all we do is sparkle in the sunshine? No! We get a little sunlight and my skin will burst and I'll turn into ash. So, very scary story. But now I think we got to go over to the offices of Vogue, I think. And I think Anna Wintour is going to tell us who won the costume contest. So I think we're ready. Are you ready, Anna?
Well, hi everybody. Isn't this just very cute? Very cute. I think we have some costumes, I think you would call them, that we can pull up, that have you've all tagged us this evening. Let's bring them up. Let's bring them up on the screen. Buddy. Ooh, look at that guy. Very scary. Oh, look at Mustard. I try to stay away from it, you know. Might damage the garments. Oh, how cute. Jack Skeleton, whatever his name is. Quaint makeup. Oh, look at more Mustard. Maybe a werewolf there? Yes, yes. Let's see. What comes next? What comes next? Our winner. Our winner. Michael Myers. Thank you. Thank you for kicking me out. You'll be in my dreams for the rest of the night at least. My nightmares. And now, Count Dracula, back over to you.
Well, big thanks you to Anna Wintour over there at Vogue. And congratulations to someone who I don't like for bringing garlic into the show, Michael Myers. Oh. Wish this was blood. Hey, but I guess that's our show for you. Thank you everyone for tuning in and engaging with the chat. Thank you to all of our performers. Couldn't ask for a spookier show, especially this guy. This guy's creeping me out. Oh, there's the scream for the Scream stream. I'm going to eat that person later. Maybe I'm going to eat that as soon as we're done here. Just a reminder, though, be positive or be negative. I'm still going to suck your blood. All right, see you later, suckers.